Have you ever had that feeling where you're doing everything you're supposed to? You're achieving things, you're getting stuff, but something still feels off? Like you're missing the point? Well, we're going to dive into a centuries-old guide called The Dark Night. And its big idea is that the answer isn't about what you can gain, but what you're willing to lose. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Our world tells us to get more. More things, more followers, more experiences. But what if the real path to feeling fulfilled isn't about adding another single thing to the pile, but about taking things away? So there's actually a name for this process of subtraction. It's called the night of sense. Now let's be super clear here. This is not about punishing yourself. Think of it more like a mental workout, a deliberate choice to step back from that constant pull of wanting this, wanting that, just to see what's actually there when all that noise stops. Okay, so according to this philosophy, if you want to enter this night, there are basically two ways you can go about it. On one hand, you've got the active way. This is the stuff you can do yourself, the conscious steps you can take. You're in the driver's seat. Then, on the other hand, there's the passive way, which is described more as something that happens to you. For this guide, we're going to focus completely on the active way, the part where you're the one making the choices. So, if you're choosing to walk this active path, what's the game plan? Well, the guide gives a set of instructions it calls counsels. And just a heads up, they're pretty radical. The whole thing really rests on three big ideas. First, model your life after an ideal. In the original text, it's the life of Christ. Second, you consciously decide to let go of any sensory pleasure that isn't for higher purpose. And those two things lead to the third. You intentionally embrace a kind of inner emptiness and quiet. That right there, that's the starting line. All right, here's where we get to the core exercise. It's a whole series of choices designed to completely retrain your will. The instruction is to always try to incline yourself. Not toward what's easy, but toward what's most difficult. Not toward what feels delightful, but toward what's most distasteful. Not toward what gives you rest, but toward hard work. Not toward the highest and most precious, but toward the lowest and most despised. And finally, not toward wanting something, but toward wanting nothing. Yeah, it's a complete 180 from how we're naturally wired to operate day to day. Okay, I know what you're thinking. That sounds intense, maybe even impossible. So why on earth would anyone do this? Well, the logic behind it is this idea called the paradox of nothingness, and it's the key to understanding the whole thing. Get this. To come to possess all, desire the possession of nothing. Think about it. The very act of desperately grasping for something is often what stops us from being able to truly enjoy it. And the same idea applies to our own identity. To arrive at being all, desire to be nothing. You know that constant pressure to be somebody? Well, the idea here is that that very pressure actually limits who you could become. And even applies to our intellect. To come to the knowledge of all, desire the knowledge of nothing. It's that classic idea, right? You have to empty your cup, you have to let go of what you think you know to make space to actually learn something new. And a final line kind of ties it all together beautifully. For to go from the all to the all, you must deny yourself of all and all. It's just a poetic way of saying that the path to complete fulfillment is through a kind of complete self-emptying. So, after all this difficult work, this denial, this embracing of nothingness, what's the point? What's the payoff? What do you actually find on the other side? In this nakedness, the spirit finds its quietude and rest. See, the ultimate goal isn't suffering, it's peace. It's about finding freedom from the tyranny of our own desires, that constant buzz that exhausts us and pulls our attention in a million different directions. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. In a world that is constantly screaming at you to want more, do more, be more, what could you possibly gain, not by adding one more thing, but by intentionally seeking nothing at all?